Welcome, everybody, to another episode of One Life's Productions Roadmap to the Hero's Journey. Let's start with the video.
Do you suppose there is such a place, Toto? There must be. It's not a place you can get to by a boat or a train. It's far, far away. Behind the moon, beyond the rain.
You're a wizard, Harry.
If I take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home I've ever been.
Way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Dream that you dream of, dream really do come true.
Open the pod bay doors, Cal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. I love you, Margie. I love you, Margie.
Won't you take me with you?
Why, of course I will.
Hooray! We're off to see a wizard.
Oh, well, you're not starting out very well.
Oh, I'll try. Really, I will.
To Oz?
To us.
Wow. Welcome back, everybody. This week's episode is The Cave, and Dr. Bill Janishek's going to tell you all about it.
So every time I see clips of that movie, I just find them that's so inspirational. And I think that's why if you looked at all those clips, they're all classics. And there's something that generations will generally go over and be inspired, uplifted. You know, those are the feel-good movies. Those are the good date movies. But why are they? It's because of the hero's journey. And in each of those movies, we're going through that journey and we see ourselves in that journey. That's why we are doing this whole this whole production for you. So last episode we talked about you're finally getting into your extraordinary world. You know, we start off in the ordinary world that we just call normal. We have this call to adventure, that thing that's inside us, or that thing that's thrust upon us. Initially there's a refusal of a call where you say, no, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not great at it. And by God, people don't like me. And then eventually you'll come over, you meet a mentor who thinks that you can. He kind of shows you to the guardian of the gate where you cross into the next world, or the extraordinary world. And then you have your tests, your allies and your enemies that we covered last time. Now there's no turning back. We're now entering, one segment is what they would Joseph Campbell explained approaching the inmost cave. And Joseph Campbell has a famous quote that says that the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And this is a portion of it where we're getting transformational. We've gone through, we're in the extraordinary world. Dorothy is in Oz now, and she's met the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion and the Scarecrow, and they're on this journey. There's no turning back. But she still thinks like the little girl from Kansas. We go through the same thing. When we approach the inmost cave, it's when we're starting to get our plan together for our big conquering thing, the thing that we need to fight through. But this portion, to me, is the most transformational, because the hero doesn't always win the big battle. He'll fight it, but he doesn't always win it. And the difference is what happens in the cave. And the cave that Joseph Campbell talks about, like I said, it's an internal battle. You have parts of your being. You grew up in this world where they told you that you have to act a certain way, don't dream so big, kids don't touch that, don't reach for that. And now you're in this other world, and so there's a conflict. And this is more of an internal conflict. You go into this cave. Men always have to go to their man cave because that's where they go to settle out the world, and they have to figure things out. It's the same thing. This came from Joseph Campbell's work, is you have to go inside, and whatever's holding you back, whatever conflicting theories or thoughts that you have are going to be resolved in the inmost cave. The second part of the inmost cave is once you're kind of thinking through this stuff, he's like, oh, I never thought I was this good, and I couldn't figure this out, but I think I can. Then there's the second part about where you grab your plan and you say, all right, there's no turning back. I'm going through. And you're still afraid to go on because you're thinking like the old person, but you're on this journey and you're all in. And this is where courage comes in. And courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means that you go through anyways. My favorite example in all the clips is in Rocky. Love Rocky, big Rocky fan. If you've seen that Rocky, and you should have if you're a good American, you're going to have to come back over. The night before Rocky was supposed to fight Apollo Creed, he went to the gymnasium or the event place where they were going to have it. And he walked around, no one was there. And he looked around, he saw the promoter. He said, well, my shorts are different in the poster than what. He goes, well, Rocky, it really doesn't matter. And Rocky came home and he sat on the bed next to Adrian. He laid down and she woke up because this was late at night. And he said, I can't do it. He says, I can't beat him. He goes, I'm not even in his league. And she said, well, what are you going to do? He said, if I can just last, if I can just go the distance, he says, then I'm going to know that I'm really something and not just another bum from the neighborhood. And it's at that point when he comes in his hero's journey that he comes out of the cage or out of the cave, because he's hit that internal conflict with himself about like, I'm just a bum from the neighborhood, to like, gonna screw that, I'm gonna go and do this. And he was scared shitless because he knew that he was going to get his ass handed to him. But he just went out, and that became his only thing, was to not only show up, but to fight through that. And that's what happens when we get into the inmost cave. So if you're going on your journey and there's a part where we all have that, okay, I'm here, I'm like, oh shit, what did I get myself into? You can overcome that. You just need, 10, 20 seconds of courage to kind of push through and find out what you're really made of. And That's what we really want. We need to be challenged to step up to the best version of ourselves. And that decision happens in the inmost cave. So with that said, I want you guys to take a look at that. We got two great guests coming on to share their hero's journey and how things have affected them. So Joe, want to take it from there and just introduce our wonderful guests?
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. And again, as we've gone through this, I'm sure everybody's going to sit back and say, I do recognize the hero's journey in my own life. And so the two guests we're going to bring up right now, you're going to hear a lot of what they went through, but you're going to hear yourself in their hero's journey. So I'm excited. Two friends of ours, friends of the show, friends of One Life Productions, right? We have Bob Donnell. Bob Donnell is the founder of Everything Next Level. He focuses on global, personal, and professional development, right? He's an author. My apologies. Yes, speaker. It's like, I can't talk. Yes, I'm choked up because it's Bob, right? So, so he's an author. He is a speaker. He's a results strategist, which is somebody who's going to strategize with you to get results. It's amazing. With 30 years of diverse industry experience, okay? And he can help, he passionately aids individuals and companies in achieving desired outcomes and elevating performance. So he's a good person for you to attach yourself to. As soon as you get off of this, I'd say jump over to our website that you see down below. Go to the word guest speaker on Bob's page. Boom, click it and connect yourself with Bob. Okay. Another individual that we're excited to bring on board here today is Justin Benton. Justin loves helping other people, seeing them realize their potential and being an actual change for good. Okay. He discovered the power of a miracle plant in its raw form when it brought his child back to him from the fog. Okay. He committed his life's work to pay it forward by educating the world about his family's story and how the hemp cannabis plant can help billions with a B, right, of people around the world with its seemingly endless uses. So here is Bob Donnell up on the screen. I got Justin on the screen. Justin's out on location. Hello, Justin. Yes.
Nice. Welcome, gentlemen.
Guys, thank you so much for coming in. Okay, the goal for today is what? To share your hero's journey. And again, once everybody's to this point in the episodes, everybody realizes we go through a lot of hero's journeys. And so I want to focus on just one of them. So Justin, I want to go to you live in the field and say, Justin, can you tell us your hero's journey?
So, no, it's just really cool to be here. The calling, the hero's journey. For those of you that know my story or don't, I was kind of living a jet setter's life. I've always been in the sales and marketing world, and a lot like Joe, and life was good. We had our second child. He was a healthy, happy kid. Around 3, we took a routine visit to the doctor's office, and the next day we realized that he no longer was healthy or happy. He actually kind of went into his own little world, a little fog, or comatose, even, if you will, and withdrew. And my wife took him in for another, a diagnosis to see what was wrong. And after the diagnosis, they said that he had developed severe autism. And so I had heard of autism. I had heard of like movies about it, but I didn't know really anything about it. And so my life that was on this trajectory of, sales and marketing and playing golf all over the world, and the two kids and the white picket fence all just came to an immediate halt. And I had to figure out how could I get my son's health back? How do I restore my son's health? And I fortunately was raised holistically, so I wasn't going to play gerbil with Western medicine to feed my kid a bunch of pills. I flew my mom out, who raised me in that nature. She was actually a school psychologist with 25 years of experience working with children with special needs. She gave me her diagnosis, and she agreed. And that was easily the biggest gut punch of my life. And, at the time, there was no cure. There was no healing to autism. It was just something you had to deal with. Cope it, grit and bear it, deal with it. And to me, I wasn't good enough for me. My son was healthy, and he no longer was. So I'm his only dad. So I had to figure out how could I restore his health. First thing we did was food was his medicine. We cleaned up his diet. The American diet's the most toxic diet on the planet. In fact, Italy just said all the food that we eat, they won't allow. All the artificial flavors, sweeteners, all that junk that is in our American diet, we got rid of it from Shea and cleaned up his diet back to organic fruits and vegetables and juicing. We all know what we should be eating. It's a lot. Sometimes it's more convenient or things like that to eat things that taste good or quicker because we have this fast-paced lifestyle. But for Shea, we needed to restore his health. So food was his medicine. We cleaned up his diet, made sure we got rid of the gluten, the dairy, just the junk that's in our food system right now. And fortunately, through that, we were able to get his diagnosis from severe to moderate. And then, here's where the calling comes in. So that was as good as we could get. As far as we knew, cleaning up his diet was as far as we could go. And I just wasn't going to give up. I didn't know where to go. There were some hopeless nights. I didn't know who to turn to. There weren't any doctors or research or anything out there about how you could overcome an autism diagnosis. And so I just continued to look and pray and think of what could it possibly be. And it happened at a chance meeting with a buddy of mine. We were at a 50s diner having breakfast. And he said he was talking with a doctor friend that was making a CBD pen. And I was like, what's a CBD pen? Is that like, Seinfeld with the astronaut pen that writes upside down? I didn't know what he was talking about. He says, no, a CBD pen is a roll-on that you roll on where the pain is for like inflammation on your knee or your back. And I said, well, that's cool, but why is he talking to you? And he says, well, because I'm a cannabis farmer and CBD comes from a strain of cannabis called hemp, which is high in CBD. And so I was like, dude, I inhaled and exhaled in college and I know plenty about the plant and I have never heard of CBD in my life. This is like 8 years ago. And so what is the first thing we all do? We go to Dr. Google, type it in. And one of the first articles I found when I scrolled down was that CBD was helping to relieve and eliminate seizures from children with epilepsy. And so that was my lead. That was my calling. That was like, okay, if it's helping children neurologically, proven over and over again since the 1970s with Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, that it's eliminating or severely reducing epilepsy and seizures in children, this is my best lead. And that's when I went all in. I tried some of the products on the market. They didn't work the way that we had hoped, but I wasn't going to give up because it made too much sense. If there was a plant out there that was helping children with epilepsy get rid of seizures, this was my best lead. So I just dove head first and got my hair wet in the deep end. And I flew around the world, met with all the researchers. I went to all the conferences. And then I came across some research from Dr. William Courtney that showed that when you juice cannabis, when you eat cannabis raw, it's the superfood of superfoods. It helps our bodies find homeostasis. So I looked around. No one had it in the marketplace. It's called CBDA. And so I was like, well, I'm in California and I've grown cannabis before, so I will grow some hemp cannabis with high in CBDA. And that's what I did. We were at a pumpkin patch. My son was having an episode of major tantrum, hands over his ears, hiding it underneath a bench. And I looked at my wife, and we had just cold pressed some hemp I had grown earlier, and we gave it to him. And literally within 30 seconds, he snapped out of the tantrum and ran off and went and picked a pumpkin with his sister. And the grandparents were there, the aunts and the uncles and everybody, and they were like, "What was that? What did you give him?" And I said, "It's just some raw hemp that we gave him." And so I'm happy to report he's no longer has the diagnosis. I'm actually at his water polo game, as you can see the school bus going by. So he's playing right now over here, and we got a couple of matches today, and he's excelling academically, in sports, musically, and our dreams came true. So we paid it forward to reach 1 billion people by 2025 about the power of this miracle plant in the raw form. And that was the calling for me. It was what I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what to do, but I know I needed to try everything I possibly could, regardless of what the odds were, just like you were saying with Rocky. It didn't matter because I was his only dad, and I had to figure out how could I restore my son's health. And when you just go all in and you operate in faith instead of fear, the answers will appear if you stay dedicated to it. A lot of us know Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill, and his son Claire that was born with no ears, which brought tears to my eyes when the first time I read that chapter in Think and Grow Rich. He was born with no ears, and they said his son, of course, would never be able to hear. He doesn't even have the instruments to hear. Well, Napoleon did not want to hear that, did not believe that. he continued to say and stay positive and know that one day his son would hear. And lo and behold, in his early 20s, a doctor came up to them with a experimental, like, research, kind of surgery, and Claire Hill spoke or heard and was able to speak. And so again, that calling is there for all of us. And like Bill said earlier, it's not a matter of whether or not we're afraid or scared, but we operate in faith. And that's, the brave people who operate in courage are just as scared as the people who don't. And so again, you just operate in faith, move forward. And super stoked to be here, share the story. And what a cool thing you guys are doing here.
Well, man, that's amazing. And I've known your story, and that's what actually attracted me to want you here as well, is because it's not even your story. You talk about, some people have this dream inside them, and sometimes it's thrust upon them. This obviously was thrust to you. You're not going to leave your son kind of hanging. You're going to do everything that you can. And for everybody listening right now, I want you to know, like, Justin's work, like, I carry his CBD exclusively, and I get so many people. They're all try my product. There's nothing that the cold press product that you have is unbelievable. And I've been doing the same thing with my daughter. I called you up on that. We're working on her ADHD and her spectrum disorder like that. And I'll let you know that she's amazing. She's been doing amazing. We'll see tons of different. Cleaned up her diet. We're doing some neurological stuff with it, but it was the because of your hero's journey, the thing that where you kind of put the flag in the ground, said, I'm going here. I don't care. It's affected me personally, but we know that you're going to affect 1 billion people around the world. And I appreciate that. But I want people to listen about Justin's story. Again, I talked when Amy Lee and Loa were on here. You guys are all special people, but you're not so extraordinary that the people listening can't find their own calling and do the same thing. You've got to find that faith and keep going, that 20 seconds of courage just to keep going and have faith. And your true reason for being on this earth is going to be revealed to you at the end. So thanks, Justin. I really appreciate that.
Love it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Perfect. Joseph,
we have to switch the muting so that we can go back and forth. So, Justin, thanks so much. I appreciate you carving out time for us today. If you need to get back, we totally get it, right? And so thank you for that. My dear friend, Bob Donnell. Bob Donnell, can you share with us? And I know more about Bob than a lot of people. And Bob has been the hero in the story many, many times. So, Bob has to stop and say, what do I carve out to be the one story I'm going to share with somebody? But Bob, could you please share with everybody so that they can turn around and say, hey, you know what? I understand that this is real, and see themselves in your story. So Justin, switch with Bob. There we go. Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate this. Imagine this. Imagine it at age 15, you're told that the only parent you've ever known is going to die within 6 months. And at 15, you're realizing 6 months, how am I going to survive past that? What am I going to do? But then that survival kicks in and says, it's not as bad as it is. She's not going to die in 6 months. It's going to last, she doesn't even probably have cancer. Well, she didn't die in 6 months. She died 2 years later. But here's the navigation part. I was asked by a gentleman, remember I'm 15. I was asked by a gentleman, Bob, what are you going to be when you grow up? I said, why are you asking a 15-year-old what he's going to be when he grows up? He said, because you can learn a product, a service, or an industry, or you can learn something that drives every product, every service, every industry. And I said, what's that? And he said, human behavior. Now, unbeknownst to me, this was going to play out the rest of my life, but it started at 15. As a matter of fact, at 15, I was asked to speak to a small cabin, and that was my first speaking engagement, July 19th, 1979. That was my calling. July 19th, 1979. I was 15 years old, and I was called to speak. Now, what did that look like? Being a pastor, being a teacher, being a speaker, I didn't know that. All I knew was I was going to be using my voice to share messages with people that would bring maybe hope, encouragement, love, laughter, whatever it was going to be. So fast forward, my mom dies. Then you go a little bit further, and the only father figure I had was a family friend. He died of a drug overdose. Fast forward a little bit further, and my daughter dies in a car accident that I witnessed. She was 3. Her name was Macy. Fast forward a little bit beyond that, my brother commits suicide, who was 10 years older than me. And then fast forward a little bit beyond that, my grandchild, who I didn't get a chance to meet because she died at 2 months from SIDS. Now, why do I share that? Do I share that to get you to sympathize or empathize? No, I share that because I just want to share with you that as they're talking about this story, this hero's journey, we're very similar. We're way more similar than we are different as human beings. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine says, where does the air I breathe start and the air you breathe stop? That's how close connected we are. And as I look back at that, my mom dying and all these different things that go on in my life, the bottom line is what was the calling that I had at 15? And how would that play a part in my life forward? Here's how it plays a part. I believe that everything that you and I have gone through, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything is the price we've paid to be the people that we are today. And I want to really impress upon you this idea that everything you've been through is the price you've paid. But listen to what I said. It's the price you've paid. I've already paid that. I don't need to keep going back and paying that price over and over again. Yet so many times we're living in this past where I could have easily just defaulted to, well, but because this is what happened, my mom died, and because my mom had cancer, and because the bottom line is the price has already been paid. We either live our life as an investment expecting an ROI or an expense. And what I learned through those years, through those times, was to live my life as an investment and expect an ROI. And therefore, I live it differently than if I'm just living it as an expense. And so that's what I really want to encourage people. And when I look back at 15, what was my mission? Now my mission is to really encourage and bring people together in unique and dynamic ways. And as I look back on the journey, I look and I say, that's the price I've paid. And that's what uniquely qualifies you and I to share our individual messages. We are uniquely qualified. And it took me a while to understand that. It took me a while to accept that. It took me a while to put myself and surround myself with mentors that could literally breathe life into me. I've got a habit where I'm really focused on having people surround me that know my deepest faults and yet love me as if I have none, because that's what I want to do for others. And so when I look at all my life experiences, I really want to share this one message. We've paid a price. And it's been a severe price. You've paid a price. We all have. It's about time we start expecting and looking for the return on investment. And so I encourage you, look for the return on the investment.
Wow. That's amazing. Joe and I have known Bob for ever. And we've hung out. There's nobody that's probably impacted anybody that I know personally. You're great, but you're no Gandhi, Bob. But me knowing somebody
Thank you.
personally, it's amazing. And going through those trials, each one of those things that happened with Bob is a mini hero's journey. But the whole premise is pressing through. And we've talked before is when we're in the cave, we've got to get that courage to go through, and it's not always easy. And sometimes when we're sitting in the a nice warm room and we get this idea and we get motivation, it's different than when your legs are burned and your heart is breaking and you don't know what's going to happen to. And I think it's the most important to have the people around you that'll lift you up on those times when you need a little push, or somebody that's going to lead you a little so you can draft them, so you can take a little bit the edge off. And I know that, Bob, you've done that for thousands of people. Me being number one that's been drafting you and following you and loving you and appreciating exactly what you've done in your life and helping others. But it's another example of the hero's journey. Somebody's out there that's going through that same thing. And when Justin was talking about how heartbreaking it is to get that diagnosis with your son, and nobody's there to help you, you've got to take on that's thrust upon you. Bob, you didn't ask for your mom to get sick. You didn't ask for Macy to get in that car accident. You didn't ask for your brother to commit suicide. Things are thrust upon you, and you've got to put on your big boy and girl panties and get up and move around. So the people listening right now, if you're going through something like that, it's not necessarily the end, but it could be one of the things that you have to learn to get through something else. And you've paid the price. Don't torture yourself. Don't keep living that hero's journey or staying in ordinary world and knocking on the door to the guardian of the gate and then failing and quitting and going. Sometimes you put your shoulder to the boulder and push. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing that and giving yet another example of how the hero's journey shows up in not only your life, but everybody that you help. Justin had to step out because he's, in a sense, celebrating his hero's journey by being a good dad and sitting at the water polo game. So I want to thank both of you for coming out and sharing in the hero's journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
I like to point out too, that in both of those situations, they took a negative and not just righted their own ship, but decided to help others beyond themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest messages you can have is if you can't, take that next step just for yourself, take it for the next person, take it for the people you can help in there. So, Justin is his son's hero, but he's taking it beyond that. Now he's trying to help 1 billion people in there. With Bob, he went through his own tragedy in there and then decided, I don't want other people to go through that. I want to help them too. And, I think we always hear the expression hurt people, but this is a great example of hurt people, heal people too. And you have to go through that hero's journey. You have to decide to take on those tough things. You have to go into the cave and you have to come out someone different than who you went in with to be able to then impact others' lives. And I think this episode was hugely impactful in that, and that really brought that to my eyes. So thank you, Bob. Thank you, Justin, for that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. So Appreciate it. Everybody that logging in and listening, and all the great feedback that we've had so far. We got it.
Love it. So thank you for those of you that are going to be joining us in the after party on the Zoom. Please go to heroesjourneyslive.com. You'll see the link there for the after party. You'll also be able to see the links, like Joe mentioned on there, for our speakers, for their websites and their information and their bios as well. And join us next time for our next episode for the ordeal and the transformation. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day.